Let's do this!
So I'm going to be reading, and this question, well, the title of this one is, He Hears Our Cries for Help. Um, and the question that God poses is, what is the matter, Hagar? And that question is found in Genesis chapter 21, verse 17, and that's from the New International Version. And so this is what the devotion says. In Genesis chapter 21, verse 8 to 17, is the story of a woman and her son who had been abandoned and forced to fend for themselves. Abraham, at the insistence of his wife, reluctantly sent his Egyptian servant, the mother of Ishmael, away with little more than a canteen full of water and some bread. It wasn't long before Hagar came to the end of her rope. Alone and without food or water, she lost hope. Convinced that Ishmael was going to die, she began to weep. But when God heard her cries and Ishmael's voice, he sent an angel to comfort Hagar, then to cause her to see a nearby source of water. Abraham was worried sick about his son Ishmael, but he was severely limited in what he can do. God, however, was under no such limitation. As he still does for us to this day, he reached into a hopeless situation and offered comfort and provision. God didn't forget Hagar and Ishmael, and he'll never forget us. His chosen people, when we're in a place where we're in short supply of hope and comfort. The Apostle Paul summarized this promise when he wrote, "My God will meet our needs according to the riches of his glory in Jesus Christ." And that's in Philippians chapter 4, verse 19. Feeling short of hope today? Don't be afraid to cry out to God, who promises to meet all of our needs. What I love about this devotion, and what I wrote at the end of this devotion, this little part that I put, and it says, God offered comfort and provision, not a solution straight away. The reason why I remember writing that down, and what I love about that is because the first thing that God did, it said, when God heard the cries of Ishmael's voice and of Hagar, he sent an angel to comfort Hagar. The first thing he did was comfort her. And then he caused her to see a nearby source. Before I was in pastoral, or before I returned back into pastoral ministry, I worked for the Salvation Army in emergency crisis relief funding, where I managed a call center where people would call up with financial struggles and financial difficulties, and our workers, our support workers, would assess their circumstance and then provide funding if available and if appropriate. And one of the most important things, and a lot of the feedback that we got in regards from our community members, was that they really appreciated the fact that it wasn't clinical, that they were able to speak and felt that they were getting treated like a human being rather than a number, rather than just this case. We're shifting into an era where even the terminology that we're using is quite important. Like, I no longer use the word client, but we use the word community member, to bring more of that humanity back into the way that we do things, in the words that we use and how we speak and how we treat and how we act. And what I love about this is that in the reflection of Jesus Christ, or in the way that God interacts with humanity and interacts with his people, it's not just, here, I'm providing your solution, next, check off this list, I'm done with you, finished you, and I've solved your problem. It's, he sent an angel to comfort Hagar first. There was this humanity, there was this compassion, there was this understanding in the midst of the problem, and then he provided. I love that it's just, for me personally, I think when it comes to Jesus Christ and his love and the way he demonstrates his love, it goes hand in hand. It's not just he will provide and meet our needs and he will just, supply our needs. He will do it in a way that will show true love. He will do it in a way that it's unconditional love. I love the fact that I'm part of a community of people, a community of believers who, in the midst of this, who are wanting to help, and who are wanting to reach out and wanting to make community. And what's the word? My mother-in-law uses mobilize people, to provide support to the people who don't have. What I love about it is, yes, we have the desire to serve. We have the desire to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. But I think, and I was saying this earlier this morning, I need more of Jesus Christ so I know how to love like him. Because It's God who provides unconditional love. And I'm highlighting this because the term that, a word that kind of really beats into my head during this time of this willingness to support is compassion fatigue, where people kind of want to help and they want to support and they want to give, but ultimately reach a time where either the circumstance becomes too much for them to bear. They start becoming negative because they don't see a solution, an immediate solution, or they see the need is too much, and then they become skeptical. People become cynical. People become jaded. People become bitter, and all of a sudden it seems like they have nothing left to give. They've got nothing else. And even though the desire and the intention is to give, it's just not there. I think that's where we need to tap into, the well or the spring that will never run dry, that we can tap into Jesus Christ. So not only can we give and not only can we love, but we can love the way that Jesus Christ did, with compassion, mercy, with grace, with understanding, where we can make the priority of our support providing comfort first before we provide the solution. And I'm not saying that we just say, oh, they're there, it'll be okay. It's great that we have sympathy, and it's great that we have empathy, that we can relate to our community members and our families and our churches and and the people who are in need. But also I think it's a lot more, and it'll become a lot more evident and a lot more critical in the way that we show love. That we treat people with respect, we treat people with dignity, we treat people like human beings, not like numbers, not like tickets, definitely not like statistics. That we don't lose sight of the humanity and the way that Jesus Christ came, King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, came from heaven and lived life as a man and became a servant first, and loved in a way that was holy, and loved in a way that was pure, loved in a way that was noble, but loved in a way that continuously showed comfort, understanding, and compassion before, more so coupled with the solution that he provided, whether it was healing, whether it was performing miracles, whether it was, feeding the sick, feeding the hungry, healing the sick, and meeting the needs of man. He also, or humanity, he did it, and I guess he was a humanitarian while doing it. Okay, just brought to mind one of the best quotes, or one of the best banners that I encourage you to hold up right now. My Dr. Murray House, one of my university professors at the college, said this slogan, or said this banner that I think is quite important right now, and it says, to be an effective disciple of Christ, you have to be a loving and lovable Christian. I love that, because it's like anyone can be generous, anyone can give, but also the intention and the heart behind that, where is that coming from? And so I'll say it again. It says to be a disciple, to show that you are a true disciple of Christ, you have to be a loving and lovable Christian. The question for all of us is, how can we not only show love, generosity, and have a giving hand and have a helping hand towards others, but how can we do it in a way that will draw others unto Jesus Christ? How can we do it in a way that is so lovable that they can't help but ask, why do you love me so much? Why do you care so much? And so our answer can be, it's because he first loved us. I pray, and I hope that is the prayer of your heart and the desire of your heart, that for those of you who are wanting to help, but if you have it, and it's the desire of your heart that it's, I want to help, and I want to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ, or I want to just be love, I want to show love. Let us not forget that God, that he was loving and he was lovable. He was generous and he was lovable in the way that he did it. He did it, and he left people with a good taste in their mouth, not a bitter taste in their mouth. Let us avoid compassion fatigue. Let us also avoid the Messiah complex. I think that's a challenge that, for me personally, a very prideful man, a very arrogant man, I pray that God comes into my life and teaches me humility, so when I give, they will see more of Jesus and less of Beez. I pray that I empty myself fully of who I am, so my arrogance And my desire to be put in the spotlight can be lessened. So at the very least, if people can look to me or look at me, they will see they only see a reflection of Jesus Christ, and they will be curious to know who He is rather than who I am. I feel that the drive right now and the desire of my heart right now is that I can love my neighbors and I can love my families and I can love my strangers. Ultimately, I can love my enemies unconditionally, because we're all in this together. We're in the same boat and we're struggling together, some more than others. And, I pray that we all have a heart of compassion, that we all have a heart of empathy, and we all have a heart that's willing to love like Jesus, a heart that is willing to be in accordance to His will.